Should you play Guild Wars 2 in 2024? Yes. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe for more great
Wait a second.
Wait, what?
You gotta tell them more about why they should be playing Guild Wars.
Okay, fine. Okay, let's quickly talk about the most important reasons you should try or come back to Guild Wars 2 in 2024. Like that? Is that better? Okay.
Guild Wars 2 is a high fantasy MMO set in the world of Tyria. It was developed by ArenaNet and published in 2012. The game released to universal acclaim with a Metacritic score of 90. Guild Wars 2 is in an active development to this day and is still receiving high praise and accolades for its dynamic, fast-paced combat, massive open-world events, epic, large-scale PvP and castle sieges, and the absolute best mounts in the genre. So should you give this game a try now after being out already for 12 years? The answer is definitely. So let's get into some of the reasons why that is.
Even though it's an older MMO, Guild Wars 2 still looks great visually.
It utilizes a unique art style that performs well even on older machines, but still holds up aesthetically by today's standards. Guild Wars 2 might not sport the most cutting-edge graphics, but its focus on its unique art style leaves the game looking beautiful, vibrant, and distinctive. How about the music? Well, if you're one for music, you're in luck. The music in Guild Wars 2 is also fantastic, and it complements the art style beautifully. It is epic and thematic and really immerses you into the world of Tyria. Some games are known for having amazing music tracks, but this isn't something that you generally hear about Guild Wars 2. And I'm not sure why, because the music is so damn good. Want to know something else that Guild Wars 2 isn't well known for, but does surprisingly well? That is story. All of Guild Wars 2 class stories, as well as all the expansion and Living World episode stories, which are kind of like mini expansions, are all fully voiced over.
Then we need another Havroon to help us. We must see what's happening in the mists for ourselves.
And ArenaNet utilizes some of the best voice actors in the industry. A few of my personal favorites being Nolan North, Sam Riegel, and the amazing and multi-talented Matt Mercer. The story itself unfolds in a very dynamic way. You aren't just watching cutscenes. You actively play and battle your way through the campaign as the story unfolds. You also make meaningful choices that directly impact and change events and story elements to come. The class stories in the base game are fairly strong, and the storytelling only gets better and more epic and intriguing with each expansion.
One of the things Guild Wars 2 is known for is its combat, and it's for good reason. Guild Wars 2 has some of the best combat in the genre.
It is fluid, dynamic, and very fast-paced. There's no global cooldown that artificially slows down combat, like in many other MMOs. Instead, each skill has its own cooldown, allowing players to skillfully chain together many attacks in a row, setting up devastating combinations. The game uses a combination of tab targeting and an action combat system. Ranged spells and attacks won't automatically hit you if you're targeted. You can move out of the way of incoming damage. You can also dodge roll in any direction, allowing you to skillfully escape incoming hits and AoEs. One thing I particularly like about Guild Wars 2's combat system is that it's both very accessible and easy to pick up by new players, but also takes a lot of patient practice, learning, and skill to master. It has a low floor to entry but a high skill ceiling. This makes the game both fun and enjoyable for new players, or players who love the game for the story, achievement hunting, fashing, or what have you, but doesn't leave out the players who really like to push the envelope and master their class.
Another thing that Guild Wars 2 is known for is its mounts. And again, it's also for good reason. Nobody does mounts like Guild Wars 2.
There are 9 mounts in the game, and each one has its own unique movement physics and its own purpose and specialty in the type of terrain it best traverses. Take the Sky Scale for instance. Unlocking this mount makes a huge impact on the way you get around the map. It can fly and hover and aids you in reaching hard to reach places. But it also takes skill in mastering its movements. The Sky Scale can fly upwards a short distance, but it runs out of energy and needs to rest. You need to learn the feel of the mount to efficiently maneuver it to where you need to go. Woohoo! The mounts in Guild Wars 2 also add a nice layer of progression to the game. They each have to be unlocked through the completion of various quests and achievements, but then are available account-wide to all your characters, regardless of level. They then can be upgraded over time to gain new abilities and functionalities. For example, the Sky Scale can learn to shoot a fireball and blast enemies out of the air. It can also learn to take off in the middle of combat, helping you escape a sticky situation.
So long, suckers!
If you've never experienced Guild Wars 2 mounts, it is something I strongly recommend you try.
Guild Wars 2 is a game that dares to be different. It doesn't like to follow the mold of other MMOs. It likes to stake out its own niche and put its own stamp on the market.
One of the things it does differently is class roles. There is no holy trinity in the game. Each class, or profession as Guild Wars 2 likes to call them, can play any role. Want to play a tanky necromancer that is almost unkillable? You can. How about a warrior that heals and supports the group? You can do that also. The options are endless, and Guild Wars 2 lets the players play how they want to play the game. Guild Wars 2 is also different in its approach to player progression. Guild Wars 2 is mostly a long-term horizontal progression game. But what does this mean? Horizontal progression is progression in-game that is not directly tied to increases in player power, such as higher levels, stronger gears, or increases in stats. There are 80 levels attainable for each character in Guild Wars 2, and there will be no higher levels ever in any expansion. There will also never be any higher tier of weapons and armor. There is no gear treadmill like you see in many other games. Once you're level 80 and have a good set of equipment, your character will always be viable. You can come back for a new expansion and jump right into the action. Being a horizontal progression game, Guild Wars 2 prioritizes player skill over raw gear power. The difference between the amount of stats between the level 80 exotic gear, which is kind of like a base gear set, and legendary equipment, which has the highest stats in the game, is only about roughly 15% difference. Whereas the difference in DPS output from an inexperienced player compared to a highly skilled veteran can be many orders of magnitude higher. Guild Wars 2 has a different take on questing and experience also. There is no quest hubbing in Guild Wars 2. You don't just go to a new area and pick up a bunch of fetch quests from a static NPC, then go about dutifully performing the required tasks. The whole leveling process is much more organic. You receive experience for doing almost anything, such as exploring new areas, unlocking new waypoints, gathering, crafting, even reviving dead comrades. Also, while you're out exploring the world, dynamic events spawn all around you. These are active events that move through the map and have story elements to them. Helping to complete these events rewards you with items and experience. All of these together make Guild Wars 2 feel alive and thriving, and it is a refreshing experience.
Guild Wars 2 also takes those dynamic events to a whole new level with its signature world bosses and meta events.
These are another big reason to try Guild Wars 2 if you haven't done so already. They do large-scale public events like no other. World bosses are gigantic special event bosses, and they can spawn at various locations throughout Tyria. These epic encounters involve massive battles where swarms of players collaborate to try to take them down. If the group of players are successful in defeating a boss, a sizable chest appears, rewarding all those who had participated. Meta events are large-scale dynamic events that take even more player cooperation and coordination in order to successfully complete. They tell a story throughout the whole event and typically culminate in a massive boss fight, like this one here. World bosses and meta events are a staple of the Guild Wars 2 endgame content loop. They are epic and engaging, and no game pulls off large-scale multiplayer events like Guild Wars 2 does.
Do you like fast-paced, large-scale player versus player combat? How about epic castle raids utilizing both offensive and defensive siege equipment? You can find both in Guild Wars 2 24 hours a day.
Guild Wars 2 has some of the best player versus player content in the industry. In Guild Wars 2, player versus player game modes are not just an afterthought, it is indeed one of the pillars of gameplay. There are two broad modes that you can participate in. These are World vs. World and PvP game modes. The World vs. World game mode seamlessly integrates both PvP and PvE elements, where players from diverse servers engage in intense battles, striving to conquer and maintain control over various map objectives, like towers, keeps, and resource camps. There are multiple ways for players to contribute to the server's success in capturing or defending these objectives. Joining large Zerg squads allows players to follow the commander, engaging in massive raids on objectives, deploying siege weaponry like catapults, rams, and siege golems to breach down defenses and storm keeps. Alternatively, players can opt for smaller Havoc Squad type groups to capture smaller objectives such as towers and supply depots. I even like to venture forth solo, picking off stragglers and providing assistance where necessary. If you like a good beginner's guide to give you a head start in World vs. World, I have a great guide on my YouTube channel and I'll post it below. The PvP game mode has different game types including Team Deathmatch and Conquest maps, and you can play in either ranked or unranked game modes. Both the PvP and World vs. World game modes are also very rewarding. They each have their own separate reward tracks that you can progress, and you can even work on obtaining legendary equipment. If you're a PvP lover, you have to try out what Guild Wars 2 has to offer.
All right, let's talk about the different things that you can do in game.
There are a massive amount of things a player can do in Guild Wars 2. A massive amount. You can work on map completion, which is exploring all the maps and unlocking all the waypoints, visiting all the vistas and points of interest, etc. This gives rewards and crafting materials, and full map completion is needed for working on crafting legendary weapons. There are those spontaneous dynamic events that pop up all around you, and their massive skill counterparts, namely world bosses and meta events to participate in. There are fully voiced, immersive story quests for every class in each expansion that you could dive into. There are several 5-man dungeons to tackle, each with different pathways which all tie in with the story and lore of the game. There are fractals, which are quicker, max level dungeons that has its own progression system tied to it. There are strikes and raids, which are 10-man content, of which there's a nice distribution of some being fairly easy and accessible, to others being quite challenging and requiring a lot of skill and coordination within your group. There are awesome World vs. World and PvP battles going on constantly. There are jumping puzzles and achievement hunting, working on legendary armor and weapons, fashion contests, and even rock concerts? Yes, even rock concerts. And much, much more.
But Jerox, what is the monetization like? Is this game going to cost me an arm and a leg? No, in fact it has one of the best monetization models that you can ask for.
The whole base game is 100% free to play, with no subscription fee required. The game doesn't even include an optional one. The expansions are a one-time buy-to-play, and many times can be picked up fairly cheap on sale. The game does have a microtransaction shop called the Black Lion Trading Company that you can use to purchase cosmetics and some convenience items such as unbreakable harvesting tools and salvage kits. Interesting thing to note is you can actually use gold earned in-game to convert to gems and used in the cash shop. So there's really no reason to not just download the game and give it a try for free.
But this game has been around a long time. Is it even still being updated? Yes, in fact the game is being regularly updated and has recently shifted to having quarterly content releases.
This new release structure now has more frequent yet smaller expansions. And it looks like we can look forward to a new expansion each year, with additional content for that expansion being released quarterly throughout the year. Also, the team has added fun new events between the quarter releases, such as the recent Black Lion Stolen Goods Recovery event, where hunting down these pesky thieves rewarded you with cool cash shop items. So, if you've been gone for a while, what are some of the recent updates and what new features are set to release soon? The game just released its 4th expansion, Secrets of the Obscure, in August 2023. With it came new maps, new story, new strikes, new abilities for the Sky Scale, and new Weapon Master training, which basically gives professions expanded use of weapons available to all of its elite specializations. And coming really soon are some awesome new features. One is new weapons for each class. For example, the Guardian is getting access to pistols. I can't wait to try out my new Pew Pew Guardian. Also, they're releasing a much anticipated PvE legendary armor set. Yes, you can soon craft legendary armor from just straight open world PvE. Guild Wars 2 is very much alive and thriving, and 2024 is a great time to try it out if you haven't already, or come back and check out the new features if you've played before. Okay guys, hopefully this video helped you decide if you should check out Guild Wars 2 this year. If you have any additional questions, please drop it in the comment section and I will get right back to you. If you like this video, please give it a like for the algorithm, and don't forget to subscribe for more great MMO content. Lastly, I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. I now do this full time, and you truly help me to be able to continue to make videos. If you'd like to support me, I'll leave a link down below. Okay guys, I will see you in the next one.